Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Vijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnu Paramahamsa Privrajikacharya Stotra Shati Stivaya Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Paramahamsa Privrajikacharya Stotra Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kahor Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Maya Ki Jai. Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Transcendental Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Hare Krishna, everyone. Good morning. I think before we start reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, I'd like to congratulate Bhakti Joseph with his birthday. It's his birthday today. So we really appreciate his listening. We really appreciate all his wonderful services and his great association, and we wish him best of luck in his spiritual life. Okay, so we're reading Canto number 7, Chapter 6, Text 6, Srimad Bhagavatam today. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so text number 6. Pumso Varsha Shatam Hi Ayuhu Tad Ardham Chajitmana Nishpalam Yad Asau Ratriam Shete Dham Prapitas Tamaha Pumso Varsha Shatam Hyayus Tad Ardham Chajitatmanaha Nishpalam Yadaso Ratriam Shetendham Prapitastamaha Pumso Varsha Shatam Hyayus Tat Ardham Chajitatmanaha Nishpalam Yadaso Ratriam Shetendham Prapitastamaha Pumso Varsha Shatam Hyayus Tadardham Chajitatmana Nishpalam Yadaso Ratriam Shetendham Prabhitastamaha. Please chant. Pumso Varsha Shatam Hyayus Lam yata savatratyam tityam prapatastamaham.
Pumso varsha shatam hyayus tad ardham chajitat manaha nisphalam yada sauratyam shetin tham prapitas tamaha.
Pumso varshatam yayus Ardham chajitatmana Nishpalam yata savatratyam Sitendam prapitastamah. Anyone else? Pumso varshatam yayus Chajitatmana Nishpalam yata savatratyam. Okay, so the translation, word to word meaning. Pumsaha, of every human being. Varsha Shatam, 100 years. He, indeed. Ayuhu, duration of life. Tat, of that. Ardham, half. Cha, and. Ajitatmanaha, of a person who is a servant of his senses. Nishpalam, without profit or without meaning. Yat, because. Asau, that person. Ratriam, at night. Shite, sleeps. Andham, ignorance, forgetting his body and soul. Prapita, being completely possessed of. Tamaha, darkness. Now the translation and purport. Every human being has a maximum duration of life of 100 years. But for one who cannot control his senses, half of those years are completely lost, because at night he sleeps 12 hours, being covered by ignorance. Therefore, such a person has a lifetime of only 50 years. And the commentaries. Lord Brahma, a human being, and an ant all live for 100 years, but their lifetimes of 100 years are different from one another. This world is a relative world, and its relative moments of time are different. Thus, the 100 years of Brahma are not the same as the 100 years of a human being. From Bhagavad Gita, we understand that Brahma's daytime of 12 hours equals 4,300,000 times 1,000 years. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyat Brahmano Vidu. Thus, the Varsha Shatam, or 100 years, are relatively different according to time, person, and circumstances. As far as human beings are concerned, the calculation given here is right for the general public. Although one has a maximum of 100 years of life, by sleeping one loses 50 years. Eating, sleeping, sex life, and fear are the 4 bodily necessities. But to utilize the full duration of life, a person desiring to advance in spiritual consciousness must reduce these activities. That will give him an opportunity to fully use his lifetime. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatrubhescha Kripa Sindhube Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. So this part of Srimad Bhagavatam where Prahlad Maharaj is instructing his demonic schoolmates, and there's so many wonderful verses. Specifically, this first verse of this chapter is really wonderful. It's actually mentioned in the preface of Srimad Bhagavatam, and that verse says that we should, as intelligent human beings, we should value the human form of life. And from the very beginning of our life, we should start participating and educating ourselves in Bhagavad Dharma, because this human form of life is rarely achieved. So we should not waste time and utilize this human life properly. And in this present age of 2024, we've achieved a lot of material advancement. We've developed economically, and there's so much development and comfort of living. But unfortunately, there's no peace and friendship among different nations. Therefore, there's a vast need for the culture of Bhagavatam. And in that preface, Srila Prabhupada says that it is a cultural presentation for the re-spiritualization of the entire human society, and that need will be fulfilled by Srimad Bhagavatam. And so Prahlad Maharaj, such a great devotee, such a wonderful devotee, Mahabhagavan, because he's undergone to so many difficulties, so many hardships by his father, but yet he tolerated them all. And not only that he tolerated them all, but he also remained still devoted to Krishna as he was. So that is the greatness of a pure devotee of Krishna. And he continues instructing the schoolmates, and it seems like no one can stop Prahlad Maharaj from preaching and cultivating this great culture of Bhagavad Dharma. Just like no one can stop materialistic people from engaging in different illicit sensual activities, unless they so desire themselves. And so desire is a crucial aspect of our spiritual life, of our life in general, because the desires that we have, that we cultivate, will actually make our future. And the power of desire is very strong. It's much easier to kill somebody than to stop them from their sensual desires. If a person desires to have or to do something, it's impossible to stop them. And material desires, as we know, means covering of lust, kama. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 3rd chapter, it is described different degrees of that covering. We see the womb covers the embryo, and that is the thickest covering, and the example given as the trees. And now more medium covering is the covering of the mirror by dust. And the example given by animals and birds and beasts. And then as human beings, we have the covering of the fire, is covered by smoke. And so that covering is the least of the mentioned. And therefore, as human beings, we have a chance to inquire into the absolute eternal reality, Athota Brahma Jigyasa. And that is the importance of human life, because we can realize how it is necessary, very, very much necessary, to be regulated in life. And as Balaram Prabhu was mentioning in his class, that kama can knock you down so easily. And he was comparing the kama to the waves of material nature, just like the waves of ocean. If they take you, you can't do anything. We were in Hawaii with my good friend Govardhan Prabhu, and there's also another devotee. His name is Bhakti Sergio. We went to swim to one ocean, and specifically at that place, we risked it, but it said that there's no swimming. There's only surfing and bodyboarding. So we were looking for a place where we can swim for quite some time. So we decided to just stop and go in. And we went swimming, and I was trying to catch a wave, and that wave was so, how to say, strong that it was just taking me to the shore rapidly, and I was, swirling in that wave, and I almost actually broke my neck because it almost just, let's say that hit me on the ground. So I almost broke my neck. Anyway, so that is the example of how kama can also break us, no matter how strong we are. And spiritual life, it is described in Srimad Bhagavatam that it's meant to change your desire. It's meant to change your heart, especially in the matter of our relationship with Krishna. But sometimes, because we experience aversion and attachment, raga and dvesha, it's very difficult to change the desire to be of service to Krishna, to be a humble servant. Actually, we're not qualified at all to be called servants of Krishna. We're just serving a guru, a spiritual master. So therefore, it is outlined that we have to participate in regulated activities, vidhi bhakti. So all the limbs of the body could be engaged in spiritual activities, and eventually all the senses and everything could be purified like that. And during the initiation yesterday, His Holiness Prahladananda Maharaj was mentioning that there's no change right away when we start chanting. You can't expect that it's going to happen right away. So we have to be tolerant and patient for that to mature. Srila Prabhupada said that for him to be able to perfect his japa, it took him 20 years. So it definitely takes time for the heart to change. And sometimes when we see that after a long practice of maybe 10 or 15 years, we still experience material desires, our heart is still not changed. And again, in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is described that then your heart must be made of steel. That asma saram hridayam. Because if you chant with concentration, and in spite of that, the ecstasy, it doesn't take place, then the hairs on your body, they do not stand, and then tears are not flowing from your eyes, then you must have a steel framed heart that is described. And so it is recommended that maybe if my heart is not changing, maybe I should pay closer attention to the most important activities that we have in our spiritual practice, which is chanting the holy name, which is the highest goal of our spiritual life. And in the previous verse, it is described that in order to be healthy and strong, we need to regulate our body. We need to have a fit body, and that could be done by the practice of yoga and gymnastics, good diet, and different regulations. Then the mind should be also regulated by chanting, by mantra. Man means the mind treya, means to relieve the mind of anxiety, of ignorance. And then intelligence could be controlled and could be fed by Shastra, studying the scripture. That also should be there, because the purpose of studying the scripture is that so we can learn more about Krishna and chant with more enthusiasm and with better, clear understanding. And so the mood of our chanting, which is described by our acharyas, is that we should understand that we actually have a relationship with Krishna. It has just been forgotten in this present human form of life to a very large degree. So it's sambandha gyan. Just like we have relationships with our parents or with our friends, we understand our position and role. We should also understand our position when we approach the holy name. I am an eternal servant of Krishna, and he's my eternal master. And this material world is meant for reforming my tendency to be separate from him, or the tendency to remain absent in my relationship. So that is the mood of the sambandha gyan. But what usually happens is that we, when we chant the holy name, we actually put our interest higher than the interest of Krishna. And this might happen unconsciously. We might start chanting and everything goes well in the beginning, but in time the mind deviates and it just goes, and we're not even conscious where the mind went. So we see that if the mind is not focused and attentive to the holy name of Krishna, then it's attentive to something else. So we lose that living connection with Krishna because our interest for desiring something is higher than the interest of Krishna. And philosophically, we might understand that we need to be a servant of Krishna and we need to give him pleasure and be attentive to his holy name. But then actually, it doesn't take place in real experience. But then Krishna is so merciful to us that even if we try to make an effort of chanting with attention and in the mood of sambandha gyan, then he becomes satisfied and pleased with us. And then there's an example in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Krishna and Balaram, they were looking for the son of their spiritual master, Sandipani Muni. And then when they went to the abode of Yamaraj, they blew their conch shell, Panchajanya. And when they blew their conch shell, it is described that all the inhabitants of the hellish planets, their reactions got eradicated and they all achieved liberation. That's how merciful Krishna is. So whenever we chant with that attitude of sambandha gyan, with trying to please Krishna, Krishna becomes present and we come in contact with him. And Krishna's interest is always related to our growth. As also the interest of Srimad Bhagavatam and all the scriptures, they also related to our growth. Srila Prabhupada was writing these books tirelessly, and he was sleeping for such a little time at night because his interest in the heart was so we can advance in spiritual life and take real advantage of this literature, study them, distribute them. And so when we become realized in these teachings, we can also become a guru and teach that science of Srimad Bhagavatam to other people in any possible way that we can. So the following should appear in our consciousness as a text in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Anyabhilashta Shunyam, Anyabhilash Gyana Karbanyana Vritam, Anakalena Krishna Nushilna Bhakti Rutama, that we should approach the holy name for the satisfaction of Krishna Anakalena. We don't need to desire and say that we need something from Krishna, but rather we should learn what he likes, what he wants from us, and give that to Krishna. And approach the chanting in a very grateful mood, grateful attitude. I'm performing this small little austerity of chanting for a couple hours just to satisfy you. That should be our intention. We should do everything that doesn't contradict the pleasures of the Lord. And what Krishna wants is described in Bhagavad Gita. He wants us to, he wants everyone to become his devotee and surrender to him. Manmana Bhava Bhakti wants everyone to think of him and engaged in devotional service of deity worship, cooking, cleaning, chanting, distributing prasadam, distributing books. That's what Krishna wants us to do. And if we do these things in the proper consciousness, then we become satisfied. It's very simple. And just like Krishna in the form of the super soul is always speaking to us, but because we have this mind, we cannot usually hear what Krishna is trying to tell us and how he's trying to help us. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is described that only if you conquer the mind, the super soul will be reached, and you'll be able to see, to be guided by Krishna through the super soul. But of course, it's not easy to conquer the mind. Our mind is always screaming. Beat the mind. But I came across just some time ago to a wonderful text in the Chaitanya Charitamrita in Madhya Lila 22:33, which describes how to enter into the presence of the holy name when we start chanting. Krishna Tomarahana Yadibale Ekabara Maya Banda Hoite Krishna Tarikaripara. It says that if one is immediately freed from the clutches of Maya, if he seriously and sincerely says, "My dear Lord Krishna, although I have forgotten you for so many lives, for so many years, now I am surrendering unto you. I'm your sincere and serious servant. Please engage me in your service." That's a very nice approach to really feel the presence of the holy name. We don't want anything. We're just simply offering our service. We're begging Krishna to engage us in our service, in the service to him. And the next verse says that if we do that, then Krishna promises to give us courage. He award courage to that person. And then from that moment, he will be in Krishna's hands. He will be safe. So we should reflect on that, on verses like that in our scriptures, so we can prompt our awareness of our relationship with Krishna, so we can be fixated, fixated and concentrated on the holy name. And those verses like that, they can help us. And in this purport here, in this text, and through the text, it is described that we should not waste our time in human form of life. It says that we live for 100, generally speaking, for 100 years, and half of that lifetime is usually wasted by sleeping. Then another 20 years in childhood and boyhood, we're wasting another 20 years by playing sports and spending time on internet and doing whatever we're doing. And then another 20 years is wasted at when we get older, at the time in invalidity. And so one of the major problems of today's society is lack of austerity. We are lazy and we always sleepy. Srila Prabhupada describes in the lecture to this text, sometimes people, they sleep for 12, 14, 16, 24 hours. In the temple, in the temple of in New York on 2nd Avenue, Srila Prabhupada, when he would give classes and have a morning program, they would start at about 7 o'clock. When there's a lot of tenants, they would always complain. It was so early, they would come and complain to the landlord. Why are they making so much noise? And I mean, it's 7 o'clock already. We wake up much earlier in here. It's not that early. And I remember I some time ago I met one lady. She's she's Hispanic, and she told me that she has a few children, and she's a single mom. She has to support the children, and it's very difficult for her to do that in America, in San Diego. So she works a 12-hour shift 6 times a week, and then it's not enough. So she has to give blood 2 times a week. in order to sustain her family. Sometimes people go through a lot of hardships. And I think she works somewhere in the warehouse, UPS or something like that. So yeah, we are necessarily wasting so much time in this present age, sleeping, eating, driving, working, playing games, watching cinema, playing board games, and all these things. But one should understand that the distress of accepting birth, death, old age, and disease. And for instance, in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Kapila Dev was speaking about the development of a fetus, he was saying that when it grows, it actually finds that the fetus finds himself in this abominable circumstances, this blood and urine and stool, and the worms are biting him. So it's quite a challenging situation. And he can't move, he's stuck in that womb, just like a bird and stuck in a cage. So there's nothing fun about taking birth in this material world. And then whatever his mother or her mother drinks or eats, he has to also take the same nutrients. You know, of course, we know that sometimes the diet of people is not exactly the most clean. And in the Soviet time, when Krishna consciousness was developing in Russia, there were persecutions of Russian devotees by KGB. And there was one Mataji, she shared her story. Her name is Premavati Devi Dasi. And she had a child, and she was imprisoned with a child. And that child she was pregnant, and she had to go to prison. And when she was there was 100 other imprisonments, people staying in the same prisoners. And so the conditions were very horrifying, very horrific conditions. There was stool and urine, and everyone was smoking. So unfortunately, when the child was born, the child had a heart disease, and eventually, reaching the age of 11 months, the child passed away. And then she was describing that the father tried to come and take the child back home, but they wouldn't let him. And all the people were also there, seeing what's happening, and they were wondering, what's happening? The children also stay in prison these days. What's going on? And so, unfortunately, the father he started crying. He never cried once in his life. Seeing all these horrible circumstances, he started crying. So yeah, it's also described in the Bhagavatam that at reaching the age of 7 months, the consciousness begins to develop, and then the child in the womb folds its hands and, realizing his horrible condition, begins to pray to Lord Vishnu that I will never do that again. I'm gonna become devoted to you. Please save me from this horrible birth, death, old age, and disease in this material world. And the last thing I wanted to bring up is what is mentioned about the duration of life in this purport. It is described that Lord Brahma and an ant and human beings, we live for 100 years, but the perception of those years is different. And it's very difficult to understand this topic, but this famous verse is mentioned from Bhagavad Gita in the purport. It's chapter 8, text number 17. So I'll just read from here what it says. It says that by human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together from the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. So the duration of material world is limited. It works in cycles. There's different yugas, and so there's one kalpa. One kalpa means this yugas, the 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga. They change for 1,000 times, and that's one kalpa. And so one kalpa means it's a day of Lord Brahma, and then there's a night, so there's 2 kalpas. And so it is described here that the duration of life of Lord Brahma, it amounts to 311 trillion and 40 billion years on earthly planets. And of course, it's, if we look at the viewpoint of eternity, it's just a flash of lightning. It's there's so many Lord Brahmas, they come and go like bubbles in the ocean. So similarly, look in our at our life, it's very short. And then with our own perception of time, we look at the life of an ant. See, it's almost nothing. So that is how the duration of time is described in our Bhagavad Gita, in our Shastras. So also it is mentioned in this chapter that at the beginning of Lord Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest, become vyakta, and then become avyakta, become unmanifest. And at the end, going to the end of that chapter, Krishna describes that there's another unmanifest, eternal, transcendental nature, completely different to this material world where everything is eventually has to be changed and annihilated. But that spiritual abode of Krishna is not annihilated. It always remains as it is. And in the very end of this chapter, Krishna talks about the position of devotees. It says that simply by performing devotional service, we can attain the supreme eternal abode of Krishna. So if we become fixed in devotion to Krishna and don't deviate, then we can go back to the eternal abode of Krishna. It's almost time, so I think I'll stop here and see if you have anything to add to this text, or maybe any
Hare Krishna.
questions.
I have a question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Prabhu.
No, but I can wait for the temple room devotees if they have any contribution.
Okay, maybe back the chat and go first, and then you. Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I'll give you a choice here. How about either a Sankirtan story, or maybe the top things you would do in an attempt to live to 100 years old?
That's connected. You go out on Sankirtan, and then you have a good chance. Okay, yesterday we went with Bhakti Ash and also with Bhakti Nelson Prabhu. We went to distribute books in Balboa Park, and we were just doing it on the main street. And I've met one person. She was telling me she's Hispanic. I tried stopping her, but she was a little reluctant, so she almost went away. But then I showed her the book. Usually when I approach people, I don't show them the books right away. And I showed her the book. It's Journey of Self-Discovery. And she kind of looked at it. Oh, what is it? Maybe she noticed the Sanskrit on the title or something. And she said, "Is that a part of Mahabharata?" I said, "Well, not exactly, but it's related to it." And then I asked her, "How do you know about this?" And she said, I used to study this in college at the university. And I said, "Well, I have this beautiful conversation between," and she interrupted, "between Krishna and Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita." I said, "Yes." "How do you know?" "Well, I'm familiar. I've read it. But I've read it and I lost it. I don't have a copy." So she said, "Do you have a copy?" I said, "Yeah, I do have a copy." So I handed her a copy, and she was very happy to take one. Very happy. And another person, she was from Bulgaria. She from Sofia. She was kind of a little silent, not speaking so much, but it turns out that she used to come for the morning Bhagavatam classes often in Bulgaria to the temple. And she's got almost all the Srila Prabhupada's books. And I offered her the book Hiding in Unnatural Happiness by Dharmita Swami, His Holiness Dharmita Swami. And she said, "Wow, this is funny. I've been listening to his classes." So she was listening to the classes of His Holiness Dharmita Swami. And she took that book and I gave her Bhagavad Gita to share with some of her friends. So these are a few Sankirtan stories. Okay, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, go ahead.
Yes, Dvijamani Prabhu, thank you very much. You're most kind. Dandavat pranams. Prabhu, do you mind reciting again the sentence which is immediately previous to the last sentence of the purport?
This one, eating, sleeping, sex life. Eating, sleeping, sex life, and fear are the 4 bodily necessities. But to utilize the full duration of life, a person desiring to advance in spiritual consciousness must reduce these activities.
Exactly, that is the quote. Thank you very much. You're most kind. So, for me to reduce, if I may say it, for me to reduce eating, it's easy. I eat less. For me to reduce sleeping, it's also easy. I sleep less. For me to reduce sex life, it's also easy. I do less sex. But what about reducing fear? And that is my question. How do I fear less?
That's a good question. Well,
thank you.
If you follow our scriptures of Srimad Bhagavatam, by worshiping Krishna, we become fearless. Abhayam. So if we have unflinching faith in the holy name, and if we chant with sincerity in the mood of Sambandha Gyan, trying to really please Krishna, Anakalena Krishna, then we can be fearless. Because what is there to fear if you understand that you're connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is personally present in your life? In the Srimad Bhagavatam, when it is described that the gopis are the most exalted devotees to Krishna, so he personally takes care of all the necessities for them. And then Srila Prabhupada in one of the commentaries describes that devotees who participate in Bhakti Yoga and follow regulative principles and chant 16 rounds, Krishna is personally present in their life. And so therefore, if we sincerely trying to chant and do not contradict the desires of Lord Krishna, then there's nothing to fear at all. That would be my answer, Prabhu.
And if I may comment on the quality of your answer, I would say thank you very much. It was very helpful and most beautiful answer to my question. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Thank you.
Let me just, a little addendum, because you have, it's also a language thing here. Usually, because what are those 4 things? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, right? Now you defend when you're fearful, because reducing fear, you give the obvious answer how we can reduce it over a long time. But these are things you're meant to do voluntarily, on your own. You can usually eat, sleep less, obviously have less sex. But it's hard to say how you can fear. Fear is kind of, spontaneously arises in you. But I think the idea of defending means that on the basis of your natural fearing, you're going to make big arrangements, get a gun. A lot of people get a gun. They think that'll help. They get a lot of insurance, In other words, these are responses that individuals do. And then, of course, on a state level, it's the amount of money that America spends on the defense, the so-called defense, is $1 trillion a year. In other words, it's too much. So I think that's one of the things that we have to understand, that the usual, because then usually it's fearing, but now I just made it fear, and then but eating, sleeping, mating, and defending is usually the thing that it has, and that you could, in other words, have faith that Krishna will protect. Don't in the name of protecting yourself, leave the association of devotees. And spend a whole lot of money in trying to find a place, that's insecure. And in other words, you have faith to go out. You have to have faith that Krishna will protect, because it's dangerous out there just to distribute books. Yeah. But as you say, if you're practicing nicely, then you won't be afraid. Even as we see with Prahlad in the most fearful situation. his father couldn't he was terrorizing him, but he wasn't terrified because of his Krishna consciousness.
I also
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, Prahlad Maharaj, maybe it is the nicest example. Thank you very much.
Also, just to conclude with this, in the Soviet times, there were so many devotees who were completely fearless, and they would not stand anything against their views on religion, spirituality. And there was one example, I'm forgetting the name of a devotee, but he was so fearless. He was imprisoned. He was staying there, and he was harassed by the the head of the prison and the people in charge. And one time it was raining very hard, and he wanted to go on a little walk. And so they couldn't let him, but he insisted. And the people who were living in the same cell, they supported him because the devotee was so austere, and they just had so much respect for him. And so they would tell him, please let him go. And then when he and his friend went outside, it was pouring rain, really pouring. And then they were walking, and they're walking in that rain. They got soaked within 20 seconds. And then all of a sudden, the rays of sunshine comes right where they stand and walk around. It's quite amazing. And they're moving, and the sun is just there following them. And then everyone just was like, whoa, what's going on? And so, the people, the thieves and all, they were saying to the head of the prison that if you mess with this guys, you'll be in big trouble.
Tell 1.5 minutes story. The devotee's name is Suresh. He's in the book, Vijay's book. He's a book distributed from the 70s and everything. He came here when Madhusudan passed away. He came down, and I had a long conversation with him. So back in, 74, 75, the whole idea, the devotees were going out as in dhotis and everything. And Ramaswar, I don't know if he was a sannyasi at that point, maybe. He and others had the idea, but we could do so many more books if we can go in karmic clothes. We called it at that time, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, but Prabhupada had made some indication that he didn't like that, so we wanted to try to convince him. So they sent Tripurari Maharaj to the airport in karmic clothes, and he did huge, obviously. And they sent Suresh down to Watts. Now, Watts is a very dangerous part of LA. It had erupted in riots after 1968, after the assassination of Martin Luther King. And it was very tough, The devotees generally didn't go down there, but they sent him down there in the dhoti to distribute, in a parking lot from a shopping center. So he did all day, he did it, and people hardly had any money. He was collecting quarters, so he had maybe $12 or something. But the Crips, their famous gang, they were watching him, So at the end of the day, they surrounded him. And he said, we've been watching you. You've been collecting money. Now give us all the money. He said, no. This belongs to Lord Chaitanya. He refused. He said, we'll beat you up. I don't care. So they punched him. So he started to pray to the Shringadev. And he closed his eyes, just prayed, please protect, like that. And he opened his eyes. They were gone. They were completely gone. But he had been punched, so he wanted to go. There was a little, what would be a CVS today, so he went there to the trade and he was going to get some bandages or something. And so he walked in, and the guy behind the counter was cringing down here. He had seen something. He had seen the whole scene. And whatever scared those guys away, he was scared by. Whether it was a vision of the Shringadev or whether it was some, something else. There was something that could, and just to top it all off, in a whole different incident, the devotees were going out, and they each had their area, each had a car and everything in LA. And he said, it looks like rain, looks like rain. But he parked his car in a lot, and he said it didn't rain. He was able to distribute and went back. Then he went back to the temple, and he asked, how do you ask you? What do you mean, how did we do? We got rained out. Only he didn't get rained out. wherever he was distributing.
Yeah.
So these things happen all the time.
Yeah, when we distribute books or doing Harinam or distributing prasadam, it creates a very auspicious atmosphere around us. We were in Boise with Mogalila Prabhu, and we were distributing books in wintertime on this main street in downtown of Boise. And we were distributing books for quite some hours, I remember. And then people out of the restaurants, they would come out and they would approach us and, what are you guys doing here? What are you guys trying to give this to people, So people were kind of affected and astonished to see that. Anyway, there's many stories like that. Yeah, Govardhan.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for class, Dvijamani Prabhu. I was in the kitchen, and I know you already announced it's Bhakti Joseph's birthday, but maybe we can chant one Hare Krishna.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's do it all together. How about we do it 3 times?
Huh? Okay.
3 times.
Okay. 3 times. 1, 2, 3.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And there's special breakfast for Bhakti Joseph, right?
Hare Krishna, you mentioned about Sachisuta Prabhu, very famous devotee, and I remember one short story how he distributed books maybe in Moscow. I don't remember what city. And police took him inside a police car and went to this police station. Mm-hmm. And on signals, door opened itself. I don't know how it is. Maybe Krishna. And he went out immediately, maybe 1-2 steps, and started to distribute books continuous. He saw this is so surrendered to Krishna. It's not amazing.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. All right. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.